This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, show 202.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. This is show 202, even though in the actual show I say it is 201. And we have a repeat guest, one of my good friends. You may know him as the Demo Doctor. I know him as Chris White. And we are not going to talk about sales engineering. This is kind of a different show that we want to talk about, and it's more about habits, productivity. We recorded this show early in January 3rd, I believe. And today it's February, and almost the end of February. We were talking about resolutions and productivity and that sort of thing. And I noticed we have that discussion that productivity or resolutions fail within the first month, which is why I wanted to talk about this in February, because now people are past their resolutions, and maybe we can talk about goals and productivity and how we can achieve our goals versus setting resolutions. And a lot of times we think about like, oh, Chris, he owns his own business, so he can do whatever he wants. But a lot of the things that he does as a business owner right now, he used to do as a sales engineer as well. So it was great fun talking to Chris again, and I don't want to belabor the point. Let's just jump in and see what Chris has to say about this. I'll see you after. Good morning, Mr. White. Good to see you again. Happy New Year.
How are you? Happy New Year to you, Ramsey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. So we're recording this January 3rd, so Happy New Year, but people are going to hear Happy New Year in February, and they're going to think we're nuts. But hey, doesn't matter. How's everything been going? How was 2021 going into 2022? How have you been, Mr. White?
Man, thank you for asking, Ramsey. I'm doing great. 2021 honestly was amazing, better than I possibly could have imagined, and I'm incredibly excited entering into 2022. The business is growing. I think you know this, but I'm operating under the business name Tech Sales Advisors now.
Yep.
And Demo Doctor hasn't died, but my business has taken on a much broader perspective than helping people with demos. Although, of course, I've got some clients that are asking me to help them do and deliver a better demo, but my business is more about sales training for teams and AEs and SEs working together. The foundation is still the 6 habits, but yeah, this year's going great. 21 was great, and I'm incredibly excited for 22.
The fun part about Demo Doctors is that, like, I went through like the online course and all that. You weren't really focused on the demo specifically.
Right.
There's so much that goes into getting to the demo.
Right.
That, although your title was Demo Doctor, which I thought was not apt to what you actually trained. So
right,
it's good that you're changing the name to actually handle teams, in my opinion.
Well, and you know, there's a reason why of the 6 habits, there's really only one habit that focuses on the customer facing demo itself. And as you well know, I mean, most of the success in not just a demo, but a customer meeting is based on what happens before the meeting, right? It's the preparation, it's the conversations, it's the collaboration with your sales counterparts. That's what leads to success. And yes, I mean, at some point we still have to, quote, take the stage, as I like to say, right? At some point the spotlight does shine on us and we have to deliver in the moment, but it's all about what happens before then. So
yeah, and if people want to learn about like our discussions in the past about the 6 habits, you've been on how many podcasts now?
4 or 5, I think.
This is your 5th.
It's been a while, so I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, well, the last one was 151, and now it's 201.
This is going to be more than what you think this is 201, right?
Yeah, it's 50 episodes later, so it's been a while. It's good to have you back, and you shouldn't take this long to come back. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming you in public, but I know it's not your fault. But yeah, like, check out the website. There's 95, 99, 100. You were with John Kerr and Greg Holmes, which was great, and 151. So we're glad to have you back.
By the way, congratulations on episode number 200. That is unbelievably impressive. So you have a lot to be proud of, sir.
I am proud. I'm very happy with the way things have been going. So yeah, 2021 was interesting. I am curious, do you set resolutions?
It's interesting. My wife and I were talking about this the other day, and I know your position, and her position is very much like your position, and which is to say, she says to me, I don't believe in resolutions. I feel like we should always be trying to make ourselves better. So she just doesn't buy into it. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker for, sort of trendy conversations. I actually do like the idea of resolutions. I do like the idea of starting the new year sort of with a fresh perspective. For some reason it just, and in fact, I've got my little planner here, like I like the idea of starting out the year with some new goals in mind, with some new targets in mind. And yes, I've set some new targets, some new goals, some new focus areas for myself for the year. I understand that some people don't buy into it. Some people think that it's overdone. I understand that most resolutions are gone by the time we hit February. But I like the idea.
Okay, so here, I agree with you that everybody should have goals. I mean, if they have goals, or they should set goals for themselves. My biggest thing is with resolutions, like, hey, I want to get to, let's say I want to lose weight. I want to drop 50 pounds. Great, that's your goal, the resolution. But then we never talk about how we're gonna get there. We never break it down per quarter. Like the way you're doing your thing, I'm assuming it's kind of like the way businesses do it. This is our goal. We need to hit this quota. Yeah. And that means this month you need to hit this month, this much. This month you need to hit this much. I need to slow down. This month you need to hit this much. But for resolutions, I feel like, everybody talks about how the gym, at least before pre-COVID, were full in January and February. There's no one there.
By the way, that is an absolute true statement. I no longer go to the community recreation center, but I used to go very consistently. And December was quiet, January was insane, and then again it was quiet in February. So that's a very true statement.
I used to take breaks from the gym in January.
Yeah.
Or change up my time, like not go at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I want to make sure, like, we're recording this in January. February, people fall off. I want to understand how you set your goals and then you don't fall off as you go through the year. Like, hopefully this is a refresher for people in January who set goals. Yeah. Maybe they can go back and review them. Yeah. How do you do it? How do you work on not falling off?
I think it's actually an important conversation. For me, just about every morning, I have my morning routine. And in fact, literally, I was looking at my planner this morning, and it always starts for me, Ramsey, by reminding myself what I'm grateful for. I literally start every day by taking a moment of gratitude. Some people call it a moment of gratitude. And I just remind myself and consider, what am I sincerely thankful for today? And I start there. And in the particular planner that I use, one of the questions it asks is, what's going to make today great? And, to me, I think of New Year's resolutions as that, in that way, like what's going to make this year great, and what am I working towards? What am I working for? So, for anybody who, and I don't know is it your phone who's blowing up or my phone? All of a sudden somebody's phone is blowing up. I think it's mine.
Not mine. I'm not that famous.
It's somebody reminding me of my New Year's resolutions, I think. But no, I think it's so easy for us to set goals that are too lofty. Either that, or we set goals without an actual plan. And to me, I always come back to, what was my objective? What was my plan? Where did I succeed and where did I fail? The truth is we're never going to bat 1,000, as I like to say, right? Yeah. And for those who don't understand baseball, that means 100 out of 100. We're never going to be perfect, but I think and I think we need to be a little bit patient with ourselves and a little bit patient with the process, and not beat ourselves up if we've set ourselves some targets, if we've set ourselves some objectives and we haven't met them. Evaluate what worked and what didn't.
All right.
Where did we succeed and where do we not to succeed? Maybe we were overshooting our target. Maybe we underestimated how much work it was going to take. But don't lose sight of the end game. Don't give up on the goal just because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. Every day is a new day, right?
Okay.
Every week's a new week.
So many questions for you. All right. First off, let's get off the quick one. What is the journal you're using, like, to journal for your day?
Yeah, I should know this by heart, but I don't. It's the Self Journal is the one that I happen to use. I think it's Best Self. I think it's the Self Journal by Best Self. So there's a plug for the
Free plug, yeah.
A little, hey, it costs about $20 or something. So
okay. And would you mind taking us through your morning routine?
Not in the least.
Right. Like, what do you do when you wake up beyond the normals?
So I'm a coffee guy. So I always drink some coffee in the morning, as you probably sip yours. I've already got my first one down. In all sincerity, Ramsey, I spend the first 10 to 15 minutes of my day sort of being quiet, and I don't pick up the phone, and I don't look at the internet, and I usually there's a chair that I like to sit in, and I just sort of let my thoughts guide me, and just try to be open to what my mind has for me that morning. I reflect on the day ahead, I reflect on the day behind, and I just think broadly. And after 10 or 15 or 20 minutes of just letting my mind just sort of wander and not, again, I try not to act on anything or let anything act on me. I sit down at my desk and I literally sit down with my planner, and it starts with today I'm grateful for. And and sometimes I really have to stop and think, like, what am I thankful for? And sometimes it's as simple as, I got a phone call from my uncle yesterday, and I'm just thankful that he's doing well and we had a chance to chat, right? Sometimes I'm just thankful for something that my wife did or something that one of my kids did, right? Or I'm thankful for my business. And then I start thinking through today's goal before I look at the schedule. And I also have a weekly plan. I sort of look at my week ahead, and particularly if I know I've got an important conversation or important activity or meeting on Friday, let's say, and it's Monday morning and I know I haven't prepared yet, I've got to budget some time to prepare for my meeting on Friday. And I try to get my head together. And it's interesting, this morning, there's sort of an inspirational word in each one of my, on each page. And this morning, the inspirational reminder was eat that frog. I don't know if you've read the book, Eat That Frog.
I haven't read the book.
Eat That Frog. You've read it.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
You should. It's an easy read. I mean, a lot of people have told me that my book is an easy read. Eat That Frog is another easy read. I mean, you can get through it in probably 3 hours, right? And basically the message is simple. Do your most unpleasant, difficult challenge.
Yeah.
First part of the week, first part of the day, because it's going to eat at you until you just do it, right? And then, it's sort of like we were talking about preparing for meetings before you go into the meeting. That's what makes the meeting successful. To me, preparing for the day is what makes the day successful. When I spend some time thinking about, all right, what am I going to do today? How am I going to prioritize my day? It sort of takes the guesswork out of the day, and do I have time to spend an extra hour of, doing something that I haven't or not? So, let me pause there. I don't want to just ramble on and on and on. In any event, usually after I spend about a half an hour sort of thinking through my day, planning my day, I might post something on LinkedIn. If I have time to exercise, I'll go exercise. And then look, it's 9 a.m. I'm dressed, showered, ready for my day, because this is the first meeting of my day. And I've already got my day laid out and I know everything I'm going to do today, and I'm pretty much on autopilot at this point. So that's sort of how I start every day.
Can we relate that to how sales engineers can start their day? Like, you're a business owner and people will think, oh, Chris, you're a business owner, that's why you do all that thing. My calendar doesn't belong to me, or I have kids, I cannot wake up early and sit for 10 minutes. How can you relate that to sales engineering, and how would that did you do that while you were a sales engineer?
A resounding yes. I've done this, I would say, most of my certainly adult life. I think as a sales engineer, the truth is that many of us are similar to business owners in that, in essence, we own our own sort of business, in that we own our own performance, right? Something, and Ramsey, I think I've shared this with you before. If not, I'll share it now. Piece of advice that I got reasonably late in my career: we are all the CEOs of our own career.
Yep.
And so to me, as a sales engineer, we have an interesting mix of time that we completely and totally own and get to choose what we do, and those that we completely and totally do not, right? It's the meetings that I'm invited to deliver a demo, to engage in a discovery conversation, to meet with customer, right? The meetings in which, or the engagements, activities in which I'm asked to maybe deliver a webinar for my marketing team, like I am very much subservient in that role, if I can use that term, yeah. Right? Whereas all the other times, I have total control over what I do in those moments, right? I think we have to think in terms of, where do I have to, where is my time dictated, and where do I own it, and how can I make the best of the time that I own?
This is something I've been thinking about a lot. Businesses, at the beginning of their year, fiscal year, whatever it is, they get together, the board members, the CEO, whatever, and they decide, last year we made this amount, this year we're going to be making this amount plus X%. And you just mentioned that SEs, or people in general, are the CEOs of their career. Like, my wife and I are the CEOs of our family. But I never hear people talk about, this year I made this much, next year I'm going to make this much plus X%. Almost everybody's either happy with their, or not necessarily happy, but they're under the impression that because this is my salary, I cannot make an extra amount. And that kind of gets us to, like, the goals that or what we're talking about, setting goals and all that. As human beings, as people, we own our businesses, our careers. Why do you think that we never think about this much, this month, this year we made this much, now this year I want to make this plus X%, and then we think about how we can achieve that? Have you ever considered that?
I mean, yes, of course. I guess I have a couple thoughts. I mean, first of all, I do think that some people, I think a lot of people think about that. I think some people are in situations where they have more control over it than others. So certainly if you're salaried and you have let's say a bonus structure that's a set percentage, there's only so much control you have over that, right? As opposed to, let's say, a sales engineer who's more on a commission plan, right? Where you have a base and then you have commission based on sales, right? You certainly have more influence. But I think for a lot of sales engineers, we feel as though we only have so much control, because obviously we're dependent on our sales counterparts for in most cases ultimately closing those deals, right? That we get paid on. If that's the case, I would be working very hard to communicate, collaborate, connect with my sales counterparts and do some strategic planning with them. What is the plan for this year? How do we plan to get to our numbers? What can I do to help you prospect, right? What can I do to help you sort of farm and nurture some of our bigger accounts or some of our more important accounts, right? So, and so I think a lot of people, I do think that people do this. And if you feel, if you're a sales engineer and you feel as though you have limited impact, limited control, I'd look for ways to exert more.
Nice. All right. So you mentioned earlier that you look at your goals. So do you review last year's goals? How often do you review the goals throughout the year? And when do you review last year's goals in order to set New Year's goals?
So let's talk financial for just a moment.
Sure.
I set a target for last year, and then I tracked the target on a monthly basis.
Okay.
So that's the way I operated. And it's not just financial. It's, for example, one of the things that I started last year, as you're well aware of, is a LinkedIn Live program, and my goal was to do at least 2 a month. And I got close. I didn't hit that, and it tailed off towards the end of the year. There was nothing I could do about it because I was just so busy. So coming into this year, one of my goals is to set a more consistent and more regular schedule for my LinkedIn Live program. Now, do I know that is likely to fall off the mark? Yes. And that's almost a good indicator, right? If I'm not batting 1,000 on that one, that's almost a good indicator, because that means I'm too busy doing other things. So, but to answer the question that I think you're driving towards is, I have daily routines, I have weekly routines, and I have monthly routines. And I sort of, and I don't expect perfection of myself. I really don't. I set my goals, I do the best I can. And then when I discover that I haven't quite hit what I was hoping to hit, I consider and evaluate, okay, what did I not see coming, or what could I or should I have done differently? Or maybe the goal wasn't realistic, and I need to adjust my target.
It's funny you should say that, because you are a perfectionist, from what I understand when I see you work. You are a perfectionist, but you're also, it seems that when you set goals, you're a realist, and maybe if you don't hit them, you try to understand why you didn't hit them, more than like beating yourself up for not hitting your goals. Is that accurate?
I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that. I suppose in some regard, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And certainly there's some, I'm thinking of some people in my life who would probably say, Chris, you're way too much. But I sincerely don't expect perfection of myself or the people around me. And there's a reason why habit number 6 is to perfect. And I'm very clear to say that's a verb, not a noun. In Daniel Pink's book Drive, he talked about the third of 3 intrinsic motivators is mastery.
Yeah.
And the way he referred to mastery is the striving of perfection, or striving to be or to reach perfection, but that the fact that we'll never actually get there. Perfection, he compares it to an asymptote, and I didn't know what an asymptote was before I read it, but it's a line that approaches another line in infinitum, but never actually reaches it. And to me, I just don't think we ever give up striving for perfection, but we're never actually going to get there. And so that is how, it's funny. I had a meeting with, in fact, I think I had a meeting with James Kakis probably less than a month ago. And I had set something up, and he was like, man, that's you, Chris. You're always looking for that one thing that's one step better. I'm like, you're right. I'm always looking at, no matter how good you are,
yeah,
there's always room for, even if it's a 0.5% improvement. And I'm always striving for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the concept of getting like, and people think that I'm bad today, I'm going to be excellent tomorrow, where in fact, you're going to be like 0.5% better on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So it takes time. And in the world we're living in today, where there's instant gratification for almost everything that you do, you get that dopamine hit that every time you go on Twitter or whatever. It just takes time and patience. And I sucked at my podcast, and some argue I still suck, but hey, like I sucked at my podcast for a year or so, and then I didn't suck as much, and I still have ways to go. I notice myself that I speak sometimes a little bit too quickly. Sometimes my thoughts are jumbled. I'm still doing it because I want to get better. So yeah, get 1% better on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, and as long as you're trending upwards, don't compare yourself to other people, because some people get 2% better and they get faster. So
never stop learning. I mean, and look, at the risk of being or sounding like I'm just rephrasing cliches, they say enjoy the journey, not the destination. I think there's a great deal of truth in that, right? It's kind of like, you mentioned exercise, kind of like exercise, right? I mean, I enjoy exercise. I enjoy working out. And by the way, I've gained some weight over the holidays. I'm a little heavier right now than I would like, right? But it's not just being quote at a certain weight or at a certain size. Any day in any given day that I exercise, that day is better because I exercise, period. Regardless of precisely what weight I'm at or whatever. So to me, it's the same way. Building a relationship with your sales counterpart. Any day that you have a good conversation makes that day a good day, right?
Yep.
Any day you spent maybe studying or learning something new in the platform, right? Or working on some part of your job, your profession, your delivery, makes that day a good day, right? It's the journey, not just the destination. So to me, that's what keeps me going. It's sort of I think that balance, right? The balance of having some goals, having some objectives, right? But then enjoying the journey, enjoying the process.
So here's something I see people struggle with. They don't remember the days they worked out. They remember the days they don't. Or like people like us, we don't remember the good comments that we get on our LinkedIn posts. We remember the bad ones. So we kind of have to also shift our mentality and like compare how many good ones to how many bad ones did we get. Were the bad ones constructive, or were they just hurtful? Because if they're just hurtful, I can completely forget about them and focus on the good ones that had some like, oh, this was great, but you missed this. Like, all right, thank you, I appreciate that. And as human beings, we need to kind of understand how far we've come, not just how far we still have to go, right?
I mean, some of the words that came to mind as you were speaking, celebrate the victories.
Yep.
Celebrate the journey. And it brings me back to what I was saying a moment ago. Daily gratitude. Literally, there have been entries on my daily gratitude. I'm grateful for the customers that I have. I'm grateful for the books that I've sold. Could I sell more course? But you do have to focus on the positive.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a mindset.
Yeah. And I want to talk about like goals. So we set goals. We set these lofty goals. We set health goals, business goals, whatever. And then we have to kind of break it down into habits. Let's say I want to get healthy. So the habit is to work out every day. But if we said like get healthy, we said like let's make more money, we're breaking each of those down into habits. You mentioned earlier that you set the goal of having 2 LinkedIn lives a month, and one of which fell off, but it fell off because you got busy. How sometimes we get busy, sometimes we get lazy, sometimes we focus on the wrong things, which take away from the things that we have to do, like answering too many emails or taking people out to lunch too much. Uh, how do we make sure we're productive and understand like this is what I need to do to achieve my goals, and everything around that is just a time suck?
There's a couple thoughts that come to mind, and to be fair, Ramsey, I'm probably not the best person to be talking about this because I'm still learning this on my part of my journey. I know one of the things that I've learned for myself is my list of goals and objectives and my calendar have to be aligned, right? Like they have to become buddies.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's how many times we sit down and say, okay, here's my plan. Here's all the things I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But then you look at the calendar, and the calendar's got
Nothing.
There's nothing in the calendar that relates to the objectives.
Yeah.
Right. Or our days, the reality of our day don't map to the calendar or don't map to what we said we were planning to do. In fact, this particular one, there's two scores that, and I'm not particularly good at doing this at the end of every day, but one of them is plan to reality score. On a score of 1 to 10, how well did your plan match reality? Right. Yep. The other score is win the day score on a scale of 1 to 10. What's your win the day score? Right. Did you win the, and again, there's like 10 out of 10, 100% of the time is simply not realistic, right?
Or the goals are too low.
Or the goals are too low, right? You're not stretching yourself far enough.
Yeah.
So
eat one ice cream a day. I can do that. Yeah. I can hit that every day.
Exactly. So, how do we do it? I mean, again, this is something that I'm learning. Like I'll say, okay, well, these are the things that I want to accomplish. All right, well, when am I going to do it? Do I actually have time to do it? And if I don't have time to do it, this is not a realistic goal, right? Or yes, I want, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the more well-known coaches, and I don't know, and I don't remember if it was football or basketball, but it's one thing to have the will to win. It's another thing to have the will to do the things that you need to do in order to win.
Yes, right? And those are the boring things.
Exactly.
Those are the taking like thousands of free throw shots that are not glamorous and nobody will talk about. Whereas we're always looking for that, like the non-boring things, I guess.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to practice doing a demo or practice doing a discovery. We just want to do it, right? We want to play the game. I think it was Gary Keller who said, "Show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities."
Yeah, that's really well said. Well, and the other thought that comes to mind when you said that, and honestly, I think this is very timely for when this episode is going to be released, is, I don't think any major objective is accomplished unless we can maintain our consistency and maintain our focus long after the enthusiasm for doing so has died.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's and I don't know exactly what the curve is, and I'm sure there are experts out there that can tell you exactly what that curve is. But to me, a project, anything worth really achieving, right? It takes longer than the enthusiasm lasts. But if we really want to get there, we need to maintain that momentum in spite of not being as enthusiastic.
That's why I like to break down goals into habits. What are the habits I need to hit to get to that goal? I mean, I may not get to it. I may get to like 80% of it or whatever it is, but what are the habits that I need to do on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, which is kind of what you said, you have your daily, weekly, or monthly routines to get to that goal. And I think that's why resolutions fail. We set these goals, but we never break down the habit of what we need to do to get to those goals. We need to lose weight. All right, the goal is to be able to wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock every day, make food for the day, and then work out, for example. Like, it could be different for everybody, or go for a run or whatever it is. But in the end, whatever goal you want to achieve, you need the habits to support you to get there. Otherwise, you're just not gonna get there. And that's the big productivity thing that I've found, that my goal is to do this. I need to block it in my calendar every day.
Yeah.
And if I block it, it needs to become, I need to learn to make it sacred, not just dismiss, I'm busy doing something else. And that's the hard part for me personally. Like I have it blocked in my calendar almost like every other day or something. We'll learn some technology, cancel because I'm preparing for that meeting, or it wasn't realistic, or whatever it is. And I guess that's the review. We need to review every day and figure out, am I realistic in setting these goals? Am I realistic in setting these habits? So
Well, and the other thought that comes to mind for me is you've used the word habits quite a few times, and I completely agree with the notion of habits, and I'll even use a different term, patterns of success. There are certain patterns of success, but there are also bad habits. So the other thing that we need to be aware of is do we have bad habits? Have we fallen into bad patterns or bad habits that are preventing our success, right? And again, it's a never-ending journey. It really is. I if there's anything I believe, it's that we will be and should be learning literally until we take our last breath. I mean, that's, this life really is a journey, and it's all about, and it's a learning journey, and it's learning. Part of the learning is what's really important to us, right? We talked a little bit about money. Look, there's nothing wrong with being financially motivated, but I think for most of us, if not all of us, there's a higher, calling is probably too strong of a word, but there are more important things than money, and I think we all need to tap into that, right? We need to tap into, at the end of the day, what are our intrinsic drivers, right? What is it that really we want to accomplish personally, professionally, et cetera, right?
In terms of like that, I feel when you're below a certain financial amount, money is the main driver. When you get past that, that's when you have the luxury to say, oh, money is not the most important thing. I want other things, which is like, hang out with the family, whatever it is. So we need to get to that point so we can give ourselves that leeway to start thinking about our passions. Because if I'm making 60K a year and I can't feed my children, I don't care what my passions are. I'm working to get to whatever it is that I need to do to feed my children. But like we have other things that we need to understand. And I feel like a lot of people understand that now, and they have hobbies to go around that. So hopefully, there are 3 words that you mentioned at the start before we started recording that we touched on a little bit, but I want to flat out say them so that you can give me your thoughts about them. You mentioned productivity, preparedness, and proactivity. What are your, why were these thoughts in your brain this morning after you did your morning, whatever, meditation or reflection, whatever you want to call it?
It's an interesting way to phrase the question. Why were they? The answer is I don't know. And that's why I do my morning reflection. And it just so happens that in my morning routine this morning, after I sipped on my coffee and I opened up, and there's by the way, there's probably some of your listeners who look at me with an old school, pen and paper journal and calendar, like, oh my gosh, like this, what's the matter with this guy? Like, doesn't he know there's digital planners and everything? I know the younger generation probably does everything either on their phone or iPad or what have you. But when as I was going through my routine and my planner asked me what are today's goals, and I found myself considering what are today's goals, the first word that came to mind was productivity. For whatever reason, I found myself thinking, more than anything, I need to be productive today. And this is an important word. We all know that there's a difference between being active and productive, right? But I think sometimes, and I'm the first to admit that I fall into this trap sometimes as well, right? We all do, where I'm doing lots of stuff, but at the end of the day, I find myself going, what did I actually accomplish? Like what can I sort of check off or put my hand, right? And usually it's those things. It's the frogs that we don't want to eat, right? Usually it's those things that for whatever reason we're dragging our feet. For whatever reason, sort of like maybe someone's considering posting something on LinkedIn, but for whatever reason we're dragging our feet because maybe there's some fear there, maybe there's some uncertainty there, right? Or maybe it's picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody because again, maybe there's, well, I don't want them to. So that was the word that just came out of my mind, right? Why? I don't know, because that's where I need to focus today, right? Number one. Number two was preparedness. And why did that word come to mind? Again, being very transparent. Here we are, literally January 3rd, and I've got a speaking engagement Thursday, and I'm actually getting on a plane for that. And then I've got a speaking engagement the following Thursday or Wednesday with a couple of workshops, right? Being fully transparent with you and our audience, I am not fully prepared for either of those engagements yet, right? So when I've got, I don't have too many meetings today or tomorrow, but the truth is I've got important, customer facing engagements Wednesday and Thursday, which means today and tomorrow are critically important for me to take advantage of, to prepare for those, right? So we might look at our calendar and think to ourselves, I don't have any meetings today. Yeah, but what about tomorrow? What about the next day? What about Friday, right? So preparedness. And then proactivity, I think that the reason that, I don't know, maybe I just have a way in thinking in alliteration and it just comes naturally to me or something. The 6 habits all start with P. So maybe that's just some weird habit I have, but I just thought I need to be as proactive today as possible. I cannot sit back and wait for things. I need to make things happen. So again, I think for me, when I begin my day, sort of taking time, and this is, I think this, I'm growing in my 20s in particular, I became a big Zig Ziglar fan. And I used to listen to Zig Ziglar all the time. And one of the things that Zig Ziglar talked about was in the mornings, take time to be quiet. And I find that in the mornings when I wake up, I take 15 or 20 minutes to be quiet and let my mind guide me. And when I do, things like this is what happens, right? Like my mind leads me and says, this is where we need to focus today. So that's, and it's just, I guess, maybe it's ironic, maybe it's not just a coincidence that this is the conversation that I had with myself, probably a half an hour before you and I jumped on our call together. And maybe those 3 words will be words of inspiration for others who might happen to listen to this. So
that's good. That's nice. It is usually the time we move on to the not so fire round, but we're getting close to the top of the hour. We've answered these questions before, but there's one that I may have changed, and it's apt to what we're talking about today. So I'm going to ask that. What habit are you working on today to improve either in your professional or your personal life?
I would say proactivity or prioritizing is probably, if I'm struggling with anything, and again, it's a good problem to have. I'm juggling lots of things. I'm trying to grow the business. I'm trying to update the website. I'm already preparing for a couple of engagements, as I mentioned. So I have a tendency to put more. And I've got a couple of friends who say this to me. They're like, Chris, you're always busy. Yeah, but they're like, but you wouldn't have it any other way. Like, yeah, that's true too. I get bored too easily. So I pile more stuff on my plate than I can handle, and then somehow figure it out. So I think I'm trying to work on the habit of just being prioritizing a little bit better and making sure that I'm working on the most important things and being as proactive. To your point early on, it's easy to work on the fun stuff. And usually the fun stuff is the thing, they're the things that the projects or the initiatives that we start and we still have enthusiasm and motivation, right? And then it's when the project's not yet done and yet the enthusiasm's gone. That's when we need to be proactive. We need to prioritize. We need to stay focused. That's what I'm working on.
Nice. All right, Chris, this was amazing. I've asked you this question, I don't know, 5 times, but here it is again. Where can people reach out to connect with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, well, of course, I'm sure you'll be putting this on LinkedIn, and I would, of course, be delighted to have anybody reach out on LinkedIn. The website is techsalesadvisors.com. I am hoping that by the time this is released, we're actually working on a website update at the moment. So hopefully by the time this is released, the website will be updated. And of course, people can find my book, The 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers. Happens to be hanging on the wall above my, to my, I guess that's my left. And if people can find that on Amazon. So that's where I am.
Thank you so much, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ramsey. Good luck. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you, Chris, for coming on again. I think this is like the 5th time or 6th time. I don't even know. I lost track. And thank you for listening. I hope this show was useful. It is different than what we used to talk about. We're always talking about sales engineering or something in the sales world. But these are important things that we need to do in our personal, professional lives in terms of setting goals and achieving them. So that's it for today. Let me know what you think. Do you set goals? I am curious. Do you have goals? I know I do. I have a lot of goals, whether it's professional, personal, health-related, mental health, whatever. So let me know. I'll be curious to hear about that. And with that, I will see you next time. This is Ramsey signing off.